The interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project for the Library of Congress. The veteran's name is Joseph Snyder. He was born on February 10th, 1985. He served in the United States Army during Operation Enduring Freedom, Afghanistan. He achieved the rank of specialist. We're recording this on September 29th, 2013. I'm Jeff Fulton, and I'm conducting the interview. No relation. Now, Joe, if you could tell me about your childhood, about where you grew up, and we can start there.
All right. I grew up, was born and raised in West Allis, Wisconsin, just outside of Milwaukee. Lived there for 16 years, and then moved to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, Menominee-Marinette area, right by Lake Michigan, and really the border of Upper Michigan and Wisconsin. Lived there for 5 years, and then moved to South Carolina, where I joined the 323rd that same year in 2006.
Do you have any siblings, brothers
Yes.
or sisters?
Yes, I have 2 older brothers and 1 older sister.
And what did they do?
My oldest brother is a programmer in Milwaukee. He's done computer work since he was 18. He was working with it before that even. But other brother has kind of done some odd jobs, but he works at Office Max now, I believe, as a assistant manager, general manager. Not sure what he's doing now. And my sister has worked inside sales for Baldor Dodge Reliance. She's done inside sales for them for, I want to say, about 6 years now.
Okay. What about your parents? What do they do?
My parents, my dad has done carpet flooring, or carpet installation, flooring installation since the 70s, somewhere late 70s or mid 70s, somewhere around there. And my mom has worked at a hotel for she's a general manager at a hotel in Upper Peninsula of Michigan. She's worked there about 4 or 5 years now, I think, as a general manager.
You said you were in Wisconsin for 16 years,
Yes.
and then you moved to the Upper Peninsula of
Yes.
Michigan.
Yes.
What was the reason for the change?
My parents had bought some property in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and we had gone up there. Our grandparents lived there, a little bit further north than we went. But we had gone on vacations a lot up there, went hunting up there a lot. So they had bought some property because they just loved the area. They had bought some property when I was in high school, and my oldest 2 brothers, or my 2 brothers, got out of school around that time. My oldest brother graduated, and basically me and my sister were the only ones left in the house, and they just decided to move and be up there for good. So they moved us up there. I think my sister actually just graduated when we moved, and I was a junior in high school when we got up there.
From the Upper Peninsula, you said you moved to South Carolina
Yes.
at that time?
Yes, when I was
What was the
21.
reason?
I was just trying to get out of there. I had no real good reason. I just was looking for a change. I had just turned 21. And my sister actually moved down to South Carolina as well. And we had some good friends that we had gone to church with growing up that lived in Greenville. And she moved, and a year later I moved as well with her. So.
Okay. And how long after you got to South Carolina did you join the military?
It was about 6 months later. About 6 months I decided to join.
What was your thought process for joining?
Well, I wanted to do my duty. 9/11 happened in 2001. It was 2006, and I'd always kind of thought about joining. I wasn't sure on which branch I wanted to join, but 2006 I watched Band of Brothers, and that was actually kind of motivating. I kind of watched that and saw what the guys had gone through in World War II, and my grandpa had been in World War II, and I'd heard some of the stories about that. He was in the Navy. But yeah, I'd watched that, and I don't know why. It's just I had the kind of the need to do my duty. I felt like I needed to do something for my country, and that, I know it sounds sappy, but that was really what it was. I decided, I really want to do my part. So.
Were there any other of your family members in the military besides your grandpa?
Yeah, we had a few. nobody in my immediate family, you know, my dad and my brothers weren't. But my uncle, on my mom's side, my Uncle Jack was in the Air Force. Can't remember exactly how long he was in, but he was in the 80s. And then my other grandpa on my mom's side, he had served in the National Guard, but I don't think he had ever been deployed or anything. So,
What was the reason for the Army as opposed to the Navy or the Air Force because of your family members?
I can't really say I thought a whole lot about that. I saw the Army as kind of doing more of the work, kind of, and not looking down on the other branches or anything. But with the conflict that we were in, I could see, you know, Army and Marines, you know, you got boots on the ground, and those are guys doing a majority of the heavy lifting there, and other branches are kind of in support of that. So I kind of wasn't trying to put myself on the front lines or anything, but, you know, figured I'd just go where there was the need. So that's why I kind of decided to go with the Army.
And what was your job, or what is your job in the military?
I enlisted as a construction equipment operator and did my basic training, AIT job training in 2007, the beginning of 2007. And when I got to the unit, the 323rd, or Charlie Company, 391st at the time, when I got there, you know, they're getting ready for their mobilization and kind of restructuring things, and that's when they changed to pretty much all combat engineers. So in 2008, to stay with the unit, I reclassed as a combat engineer and deployed as a combat engineer in a route clearance package. And then since we've gotten back, I've reverted back to the construction equipment operation.
What was your drive to want to do the construction, the heavy equipment, when you first joined the military?
Well, I mean, I'd always liked using equipment, anything big that I could drive. I, you know, always liked messing around with equipment. But really, I was wanting to get into the construction field somehow at the time, and you know, that was pretty much what they had available for it. And you know, I got to MEPS when I was enlisting and everything, and they showed me what they needed. And you know, they needed infantry, they needed some people for signal corps, and you know, the construction equipment. So that's what I decided to go with.
Was the thought process maybe even looking into the future of getting that job training experience?
Yeah, kind of. I figured it's something I could use in civilian world, and it seemed just like something that would keep me interested. So.
Okay, and you did when you went off to basic training in AIT, was that was all at the same place?
Yes. No, it wasn't at the same place.
Okay, where'd you do basic?
I did basic in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and then as soon as I was done with basic, I went to Missouri, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, did my AIT.
Okay, and then you said recently after coming back, or maybe even like a year after.
It was about a year and a half. I actually didn't even know it until I went to do our 2 weeks training in, I think it was Fort McCoy, Wisconsin that year. They told me that I was going to reclass. If I wanted to stay at the unit, I had to. So I think it was August of 2008 that I reclassed as a combat engineer.
Okay. What, going into doing the 1 week in a month as a reservist, how did you feel as a soldier at that time?
When I first enlisted, it was kind of strange. You know, the unit had gotten back from deployment in 2006, I believe, and you know, I was showing up at the unit in 2007, so it's kind of relaxed. You know, I didn't know a whole lot about the military before I joined. Like I said, you know, I only had a few people in the family that were in the service, but I didn't really know a whole lot about it. But doing basic and AIT, that pretty much was my baseline for my understanding of the military. Then I came to the reserves, to the reserve unit, and everybody was kind of sitting around and joking around and playing basketball. Everybody was a sergeant or above, and you know, I didn't really kind of saw the structure in basic, and it didn't really add up at the time because they were kind of in the reset phase. So it was kind of peculiar, you know, and it seemed like it was just too good to be true, too easy or something. But throughout the years after that, we had the train up started to get a little more intense. Getting ready for deployment. Things started to get more real, and you started to get more structure into the unit itself. And then that's when it really made sense to me. Everything kind of made a whole lot more sense. You have your team leader, your squad leader, platoon sergeant. When I first got in, I didn't really understand that stuff because I didn't know who they were, because there just wasn't that organization in place. So.
Where you said going up towards the training of going overseas, you started feeling that structure. Where can you remember a time where it just made perfect sense?
Really, our platoon sergeant, Sergeant Everode, when he first took over, I understood somewhat before that when we had gone to the Mojave Desert and trained. We had Sergeant Fulton, Sergeant Henderson was in charge of the platoon, but we really didn't have the numbers yet. So, they had set team leaders, squad leaders, platoon sergeant, but really didn't have the numbers. So it was kind of just go to whoever you need to get your problem solved. And once Sergeant Everode took over, we started to build up our numbers more in the unit and the platoon. And Sergeant Everode had every slot, every sergeant, every team leader, squad leader spot filled. You knew who your team leader was, you knew who your squad leader was, and you knew to follow your chain of command and stick with, go to your team leader first. So really, when he got there, and that was one of his main priorities, I think, when he had first gotten there, to make sure to set that structure up and make sure every person there knows. If you have an issue or you have a problem or a question, you go to this person and they'll run it up, however they need to.
Okay, and going from there, you went back to the unit and kept doing training.
Mm-hmm.
And when did it start getting more real that I'm about to go overseas?
Really, Mojave was the beginning of it when we went there in 2009, the summer of 2009. That was the beginning of it. And that was probably one of the first times that we actually ran route clearance missions and training. So that was the beginning of it, and it kind of intensified anything that we had done between then and actual deployment. When we actually went to Fort McCoy in 2010, beginning of 2010, we were running a lot more missions for training and stuff. And when we started doing the paperwork, that's when you knew, like, we're getting ready to go. I ain't got much free time left, but probably around that time was when that there's no way we're not going. That's when I kind of realized it.
Being born and raised in Wisconsin, and then you're now going to Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, was that a little surreal? Now you're back in your home state to do the training to go overseas?
Not really. We were still on a military installation. It is Wisconsin. There's snow. I was used to snow, but didn't really see family. It was kind of, the environment was like home, but you weren't with your family or anything a whole lot, so it wasn't really too surreal. It was just another military post, doing your training to get ready.
And being exposed to that cold environment, do you think you had an advantage compared to some of the soldiers that may have even come up from Florida, as far as being able to go with the elements?
I tried to. I heard it a lot from people. You're from here, you shouldn't be cold, but people get cold when it's negative degrees out. But it was something I was used to, and I acted like I was a little tougher. Tried to, but if it bothered me, I tried not to say anything, just push through it. But I don't think I really had much of an advantage there.
At mobilization, when did you figure what your position was going to be, or when did you find out what your position was going to be for the deployment?
Well, I had I wasn't, like, when we went to Mojave, I was hoping that I'd be an operator, since I had the construction equipment operator experience. So I was hoping I could be an operator, a driver, whatever that could translate to, whatever we could use that for within route clearance. So I was hoping that I was going to be able to, like, be on the Buffalo Arm or something. but my squad leader, Sergeant Fulton, decided that I was going to be his driver, and put me in that position early on when we started mobbing. When we first got to Fort McCoy, when we first started our missions, he decided I was going to be his driver early on, and just pretty much when he picked me, we ran a couple missions. He said, "You're my driver," and that was it. So.
What was the position in the convoy or the route clearance?
Lead truck. We were lead truck. Every time we'd gone out, we were lead truck. And I had, at times, if Sergeant Fulton wasn't there, there was times that I would drive for other TCs, other tank commanders. But if our crew was there, we were lead truck every day.
How did that, when you were told that you were going to be the lead truck driver, how did that sit with you and affect you?
I was kind of happy about it. It's kind of like you think lead truck, I'm going to be the first one in. It didn't really bother me at all. I wasn't really that nervous about it. I mean, I knew we had a job to do, and I really didn't think it made me any safer or more in harm's way to be in the lead truck. But I know that's kind of the perception, and when I had kind of felt proud of it, and like knowing that we're gonna do this, and we're gonna be able to say, yeah, we went through this whole mission, front truck. We were first ones in there. I was kind of proud that I was gonna be able to say that, or be able to accomplish that. But I wasn't really nervous about it or anything. It didn't weigh on me a whole lot. Just it's a job, you got to do it, and we're gonna get it done. So.
Do you feel like the training prior to going overseas helped you when you were actually over there?
It did. We had run a lot of missions in McCoy, a lot of basically mock route clearance missions, and as much as they try to make it as realistic as possible, it's adapting over there what you see. So you might have somebody come in that's been over there in 2008, 2009, and it's pretty recent, maybe a year of break between deployment and their training of you to go. But it's changed. I mean, you can't expect the enemy to not change with you. So we had been trained on look for this, look for that, which really we got over there. It really wasn't a whole lot of that. What they had expected or what they had trained us on. But the good training was the fact that you got to get out there with the guys that you're going to be serving with. Like I said, we had our crew picked out in Primo in Fort McCoy, that January or February, whatever it was. But we had our crew picked out, so we worked with each other every day. And by the time we had gotten overseas, you knew who you were going with. I had Specialist Brunskill was my gunner, so me and him, we knew me and him got to get the truck ready. We'd gone through it every day in McCoy while we were on the mock missions. We knew what we needed. We knew when we were supposed to be there. We knew how much time we needed to get set up. And that was probably the thing that was most helpful is really knowing what you got to have. And it was good training in that respect. But as far as them being able to tell you how the enemy's going to come at you, it kind of lacked there, but I don't really see how they could have been any more helpful there. I mean, we did the left seat, right seat thing with the unit that we had replaced overseas. That's kind of where we got that intel from, was them telling us that they're point A, point B, point C is where they're coming from. This is what they're using. And that was really when we learned that. But pre-mob, we learned to work with each other really well. So it was pretty good training there.
How long after doing the left seat, right seat, do you remember starting into your missions?
I want to say it was about a week and a half. I was actually I think the first left seat, right seat mission I had gone on with a couple other people from our platoon. I don't remember exactly who it all was. But yeah, I know I was one of the first. I was the only one from our platoon in the truck, and in that particular truck. And I went out that day, and then I want to say that the next day was about 25% of the package was our platoon, and then the next day was about 50%, and then you know, by the end of the week, I want to say they're about done, you know, riding with us. And then we had gone on one pretty big named operation, and I think we had, that came immediately after the left seat, right seat, and they brought their platoon leader with from the old unit, just because it was a big operation. But it wasn't long that they had trained us. But we learned a lot in the week, you know. So, I mean, we got to see the practical application of everything we've been told.
Now, what was that operation that you were referring to?
Operation Strong Eagle.
Tell me how that, knowing that you're going into a bigger operation, how is that going to affect you, and how did that affect you mentally?
For me, I think that I had an advantage over a lot of people that had been on their first deployment there, because I'd been in since, you know, or training since '07. You know, so I had about 3.5 years there that I was training up for it. You know, so I had time to get mentally prepared for it. You know, I wasn't going into it thinking, you know, I wasn't going in thinking it was going to be easy. You know, I fully expected to have some kind of contact with the enemy, and going to that operation was really the first time we did, or the first time I did. But I think a lot of guys, other guys, you know, did their training, and then, you know, some people during their training have heard, you know, you're going overseas as soon as you get done. You know, other guys, you know, just get back from their training and then go overseas right away or start training up right away. I think I had a big advantage over them because I had a good amount of training before that. You know, I'd been to 3 ATs or 3 annual training, been to a whole bunch of drills, did the pre-mob, you know, did a lot of stuff before then. So for me, it wasn't really unexpected that we were gonna, you know, run into something with contact. And before the mission, we had heard from our platoon leader, my squad leader, Sergeant Fulton, heard before that, you know, we'd probably get some kind of contact in this mission, you know, so be prepared. And, you know, didn't really hesitate, you know, it didn't weigh on me, you know, like I said, you know, I knew the risks involved, but that's what I joined for. That's what I was expecting when I enlisted. That was what I was expecting when I reclassed in the combat job. You know, it was expected. Wasn't scared. Wasn't real nervous or anything. Wasn't like I wanted to go. You know, I'd rather be at home, but you know, it was all right. Trusted the guys next to me too. So
Now, if you could recall the events of that morning or that day of the big operation, if you could just replay some of those for me.
I know trying to remember times and stuff. It was the day before the operation, I believe, that we had gone out to basically a base where we were staging. We had gone up there, I don't remember the name of the base, but I think it was about 4 or 5 kilometers away from where we were going to be running, where the mission was actually going to be running. We had been told probably around 11 o'clock at night, you know, what the mission was. And it was basically a valley leading up to a village called Dam. And in that valley you had farms to your left and houses to your left and a little drop off. On your right side there was a mountain, and we're on a little skinny 1-lane dirt road. And we found out what the mission was around 11 o'clock, that we were going to be the lead, or we were going to be, you know, clearing the road leading through that valley to that village, and they were going to have air assaulted troops around the mountaintops because it was, I think, 2 kilometers away from Pakistan. So they had air assaulted troops on the top of the mountains to catch anybody trying to run away. And then they had, I believe it was a company on each side of us of infantry. So, you know, there was a lot of troops there, but we had found out about it about 11 o'clock. And I think the mission, we got in our trucks and got ready to leave around 1 a.m., I believe. And I think something got messed up and slowed us down somehow. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know we were on the road at sunlight, first sunlight, and I think around 6:37 in the morning we started taking fire. And it was, I just remember hearing little pop shots, coming through, and just kept escalating from there, and started getting RPGs shot around and stuff. I think we had one or two trucks that got disabled because they took bullets in the front and took out something in their engine. I don't remember what it was. But it wasn't long after we started taking fire that the infantry that was on our left and right, they started to fall back and kind of left their trucks parked behind us pretty much. But they fell out, or they fell back, and we had a few guys in the back seat. I know Wooten, McSwain, Nick Hawkins, and me, Fulton and Brunskill, of course. And we had driven up to help out some soldiers that were pinned down, some of the infantry. They were pinned down on over on that right side of the road ahead of us, trying to take whatever cover they could on the mountain itself. And we had gone up to try to give them some more cover, and RPG came in and deflected somewhere off of our vehicle and hit their squad leader, unfortunately. So we picked up their squad leader, and then they were able to fall back after that. So we were out there for a while. They came on later and picked him up, picked up the casualty. But they had a lot of trucks parked behind us, and I want to say we had gotten out of there at 4 o'clock, and we were taking fire for several hours, and finally, I want to say it was somewhere around noon or 1 o'clock that Special Forces came through to, run up in front of us and start clearing out a little bit more. They had some ANA, Afghan National Army, with them, and Apache helicopters started coming through to attack some areas that we were taking fire from. And I want to say the count in that mission was 200 Taliban that were captured or killed that day, I believe. I think that's what the report had said. But by 4 o'clock we were finally able to get out of there. They got their trucks moved. I'm pretty sure it was around 4, and then we got back around 5 and got ready to prepare ourselves for the next day.
Now you said you feel like you had the advantage mentally getting ready, but when you heard that first bullet or that first mortar hit, did it affect you, or was it just training that?
Yeah, a lot of the training kicked in. It was like I said, we knew what we were there for. We knew what the risk was. We knew what could happen and probably would happen, and expected it. I was kind of happy, we're getting it out of the way now, instead of waiting all day long to drive up here, and we just were able to get it out of the way right away. And I don't really know how to explain that, but the training did kick in. It wasn't really scared or nervous. In the back of your mind, you knew what could happen, moving forward, but just did what we had to do.
Do you think that helped set the tone or give you a good image for the deployment, being so early in it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was kind of like, this is all they got, It wasn't really like super happy because lost a soldier and had to kind of deal with that, unfortunately. But it wasn't from our platoon or unit or anything, but still, it's an American soldier. Kind of wasn't super, ecstatic about it, but kind of, knew, we can handle this. It's not, our training has got us to here, and, we know what we're doing and we can handle it, so, and, of course, later on throughout the deployment, we learned a whole lot more, but definitely, from there, with the training that we had gotten from the unit that we were replacing, a lot of things that they had said, and going through combat so early on in the deployment, yeah, definitely was prepared for the rest of the tour.
Now, going forward from that named operation from the beginning of the tour, What were some of the other things you encountered besides just IEDs out there?
Um, as far as attacks,
Yeah.
I know they had tried shooting a lot of RPGs at us. They had, I mean, a lot of small arms fire, recoilless rifles, mortars, IEDs, of course, a few different types. Really, when we did, I want to say 3 months, 4 months in the northeast area of Afghanistan, and then we moved to a little southeast Afghanistan near Kandahar. When we were in the northeast area, there was a lot of small arms fire, and we had encountered a couple IEDs, roadside bombs or under road bombs, whatever you want to call them. I think only one had detonated on us up there though. And then when we moved down south, there was a lot more pressure plate victim operated IEDs. And but up north, there's a lot more small arms fire. You know, the AK-47s, RPGs, and then down south they had more mortars and IEDs.
So, and being the front truck, encountering those on the northeast, and then getting relocated down to the south, did you have a different thought process? Like, okay, well, we've been taking small arms fire. That's what we're going to encounter down here.
I wasn't sure. I mean, I hadn't. That was kind of the thing that was strange. I wasn't sure what we were going to encounter there, and the guys that had trained us doing the left seat, right seat thing, they had told us, everybody in that platoon had told us, you're going to get blown up. Just deal with it. It's going to hurt. It's not going to be fun, but you'll get over it and you'll go back out on mission. And we kind of had that in the back of our mind, just waiting to get blown up. I never did. Our truck never did, and even though we were the lead truck and drove over a lot of bombs, we never blew up for some reason. But we're kind of in the back of my head the whole time, like I'm just ready to get it over with. Just blow up, see how it is, and then I can move forward from there. But just it never happened. And once we got to Kandahar or the southeast, we started to hit a lot more bombs. I had no idea what we were going to encounter, but after we saw the moon dust, we kind of had an idea. After we hit a few IEDs, we pretty much knew, it's flat, sandy, you can hide anything underneath the sand there, and kind of figured pretty quickly once we got down there, we realized, there's going to be a lot of bombs, not going to be a lot of people shooting at us because they got no chance if they did, so sure enough, we started hitting a lot of bombs, and just, I don't know how we rode over so many of them, and we had the mine roller in the front that's designed to set off pressure plates, and that's primarily what we had ran into, is the pressure plates, and just never blew up. I didn't really understand why, but I guess.
How did that make you feel, being the lead truck driver and never getting blown up, but you said that there were several that went off behind you? It's kind of hard to describe, I guess. It's kind of surreal, I guess. The fact that people, I don't know, our truck just wasn't. It's like it wasn't doing its job or something sometimes, and I was kind of always more concerned about the other people. Not trying to sound selfless or anything, but I was more concerned about my friends behind us. We had the one mission in the northeast where we had gotten attacked or kind of ambushed, where we started taking small arms fire. Not really ambush, but we just started taking small arms fire from the side of the road, and our SOP was just to push through. So we had pushed through, and the only thing I could think is, there might be a bomb up here. Maybe they're just trying to get us to get out of here and hurry up without thinking, make us, kind of get ahead of ourselves and just run over this bomb without thinking. And then all I could think is, that was probably the most nervous I was the whole time we were there, but just thinking, if we blow up, everybody's kind of pinned down behind us. What would happen to them if we get blown up?
you know, and we're taking fire, and they had fire superiority on us at the time. So that was kind of the most nervous I was being over there. But I was more nervous for the guys behind us because I knew we'd be okay. But kind of relate that to what we were doing down south, where we just weren't blowing up, but everybody else was. Like everybody else was. Kind of just really concerned for those guys. And like, not that we had it easy or anything, but I was always concerned for, you know, what if, you know, for them, since we're just not getting blown up. I know the time Hicks was blown up in his Husky, the one-seater, that was probably the longest couple minutes that we were there, because couldn't hear from him for a little bit. You know, it was a big explosion. It flipped him over, you know, where his door was on top of him, and the truck was laying on there, so there's no way out for him. And we were able to flip him over, but that was probably the most nervous I was, and that was probably the most angry I was that our truck was not blown up, because I did not want to see anybody else get hurt.
So a little bit of survivor guilt of...
It could have been. It could have been. Luckily, we didn't lose anybody in the platoon, but it definitely could have been. But, you know, I still, you know, I wanted to, like I said, do my part and kind of trying to help other people go through something so somebody else doesn't have to do it. You know, do my part of my service and my contract, you know, whatever. But our truck just never went. So.
You said that you were doing a high tempo missions. Did you ever have downtime?
Yeah, a little bit. We had when we had first gotten to the southeast, there was not much, not much at all for a couple months. We had, you know, a few days here and there. We started to get into a rhythm where we knew what people needed to go on the mission and you know, what our loadout was. And some people got to stay back, and they were able to, you know, we were running missions pretty hard, and our truck had ran most of them. I want to say we got less days off than anybody else. But we had a few, and you know, we found stuff to do on those days. They're building a deck or a roof for our living area or whatever. And we had done that to give our platoon a nice little area to hang out when we did have some days off. But we made it through the summer, made it through the fall, and then I went on my leave in November. When we got back, it was pretty relaxed. I mean, we still ran missions a lot, but we had kind of a better schedule where we'd have some days off and you know, kind of mess around, play Xbox, you know, just drink energy drinks and act ridiculous sometimes, play horseshoes, football. We did a few things.
It sounds like you guys had a good team building and camaraderie.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us got along really well.
That definitely helps. So when you came back from overseas, how did you feel, obviously being back in the States, back to where you're comfortable?
It was tough. That was probably the toughest part for me. My son was born in 2008, so we had deployed when he was a little bit over a year old. I missed him a lot, and you know, I was able to talk to his mother through Skype and stuff while we were overseas sometimes. Whenever it was available, we were able to do that. But getting back, you know, it was great to see him. I was able to take my leave when he had his second birthday, and when we got home, he was about 2.5. So it was kind of challenging picking back up from there, because I was, you know, not around him for a year there, a little bit over a year really. But he, you know, it took a little bit of work to kind of get more involved in his life again, and where I think, you know, he knows I'm his dad now and everything. It's been real good to be able to spend a lot of time with him since we moved back. So that was nice, but it was kind of hard to readjust because your adult friends and family, you know, you want to, you know, your life has been different from what theirs has been for the last year. So you kind of don't, people you had something in common with before, you don't really have that in common with them anymore. And plus they've gone through different, experiences and challenges while you were gone as well. So it was kind of complicated to readjust and try to get back where you were with a lot of relationships.
Okay. So you've been in the Army for how many years now?
6.5, almost 7.
And have you re-enlisted, or are
Yes.
you going to?
Yeah, I re-enlisted in July of this year. So I'll be in for 12.5 years total by the time this contract's over. So
Okay. Are you thinking career at this point?
I will be career.
Okay.
It'd be kind of a waste to be in for 12 years and not go the full 20. So that's what I'm thinking for sure, is probably career.
So any difference? Are you going to want to try and stay the same job, or are you going to want to try and branch out to other jobs in the military?
For now, I'm kind of, I like the unit that I'm with, and I'd like to stay with them for the near future. I'm not sure what the distant future what I'll be thinking at that point, but I like the unit I'm in now, and I've been with them for 6, almost 7 years now, and I like being there. They've reverted me back to my construction equipment operator job, and I enjoy that job. I enjoy the guys that we work with for that. As far as looking forward to the deployment, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I could top the one that I was on before, but I'm sure there'd be some pretty interesting experiences still. So I'm looking for, plus getting into a different role going forward into that deployment. But yeah, for the near future, I'd like to stay with them, and if they deploy, go with them. And if after that, I'd hope that everything is as smooth as it has been with that unit, and I'd just stay with them as long as I can.
Okay. Have you done college, or are you currently doing college?
I'm currently in college. Yeah, I went before I was in the service for about a year, and then after that, I just started back up again. I want to say October of last year. I started of 2012 at ECPI University.
Going from a non-military experience as a college student to now you've been overseas, you've seen things other people haven't. How do you interact with classmates now compared to maybe before you entered the military?
It's been about the same, but you got a lot of people that are actually at my school. There's a lot of people that are in the service or were in the service, and they're using their GI Bill or school money from the military to go. So there's a lot of people that you have that common, you got that common ground with them, so you can relate to them a lot and hear their stories and tell your stories, kind of one up their stories usually. But it's pretty easy to get along with those people, and a lot of other people like to hear your stories too sometimes. So it's not hard interacting with people at all or anything. It's about, you just have a little extra you can talk about. You have more experience that you can kind of bring to the table when you're interacting with other people.
And what would you say is something that you've learned from your military experience of just in life in general?
Work ethic is definitely learned a lot about having a good work ethic with the military, and responsibility. There's things that you're responsible for that nobody else is going to help you out with. You just gotta. Sometimes it's not fun to have to do this or that, but you just gotta suck it up and get it done. So that goes along with the work ethic, of course. Sometimes you don't want to wake up early in the morning and go to work and deal with stupid stuff, but you gotta do it. So you got good days, you got bad days, and just roll with it. That's something that I've definitely learned through the military.
All right, Joe. Well, I appreciate you coming and giving this interview today, and I just want to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And have a great one.